Welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel. Thank you for joining us today as we take a bizarre and twisted turn and meander through some headlines and news stories that weave the entire planet together in unity on one particular subject. That subject, gold, the theme here typically on the Junius Maltby channel. I think what you're going to see today is going to kind of blow your mind and make you look at things a little bit differently, challenge the status quo, and hopefully get you to question even more of what we see in the news on a daily basis, on the reasons for certain information being released, certain news stories being circulated, and so on. But also, I think what we're going to see today is going to show us that, well, we're all human, and we have things in common as humans. We all do. And I firmly believe that all of us, the world itself, could easily become more united if we looked at some of the similarities we all hold, some of the values we all hold, and have a rational and logical discussion on certain subjects. So, enough rambling. Let's get to the stories here because they're pretty cool, and you're going to see how we all have a lot in common. Everybody has a lot in common here, being gold. So, we've talked about this in the past. Germany wanted their gold back. They value gold. They see value in it, all for the right reasons. They wouldn't ask for it if it was a barbarous and archaic relic that should be thrown into the ocean or given out for free. So for decades, Germany stored most of its gold in New York for safekeeping. A lot of this goes back to World War II and past history. We're not going to get into all that. But the German Bundesbank has been repatriating its reserves by the plane load. So they're getting their gold back. They want it. And I'll leave you to figure out why that is. You know, there's theories out there of why these countries are getting their gold back. Whether it's future economic instability or what, we don't know. But let's keep going here. Austria begins gold repatriation. Maybe you should too. Austria has started acting on its plan to repatriate a big chunk of its gold reserves. Last week, the Austrian National Bank announced it brought 15 tons of gold back into the country. According to Reuters, a spokesman said the bank began repatriating the gold from London in October. After repatriation, Austria held roughly 65 tons of gold, or about 23% of its reserves, on its territory, the spokesman said. Around 3/4, 209 tons, were in London, and 6 tons were in Switzerland. Austria's gold reserves total about 280 tons. Now, according to Reuters, last month's repatriation is just the opening act in its long-term plan. Austria's getting its gold back, long story short. They're getting their gold back. Now, Austria's not the only one. We just mentioned Germany, and a number of other European countries are bringing their gold home, including Germany, as we mentioned, the Netherlands and Belgium. Germany began aggressively ramping up its repatriation program in 2014. They brought back 120 tons of gold last year. 85 tons came from the New York Federal Reserve, home to nearly half of Germany's gold at the time. Like Austria, Germany plans to bring at least half of its reserves back within her borders by 2020. Now there's also, and we're going to get more into this later on in the article, but Texas legislature passed a bill creating a state gold depository. The Lone Star State plans to bring home $1 billion in gold currently held in New York City. Now, not only is this happening in Europe, but China, as we all know, has been aggressively building up its own gold reserves. They've accelerated their gold buying spree last month, bringing in an estimated 21 tons in November, the largest amount in 5 months. Meanwhile, we have Russia, Kazakhstan, India, all of them buying gold across the board. So, I would argue that if you're against gold, you're in the minority, and you should reevaluate what it is you think and why do you think it. You know, what have you been told and taught your whole life? What kind of propaganda soup have you been drinking and eating to formulate your opinion on gold? Now, I find this quote interesting at the end of one of these articles here. It says, there are not many circumstances in which holding a big stash of gold on your own territory matters very much. But one of them is a sudden chaotic reorganization of your currency. If a country were to introduce a new currency overnight, then if it could be backed by some gold right from the start, that would give it some instant credibility in the markets. Repatriating gold only makes sense as a way of preparing for that to happen. And I think most of you would agree, not only to prepare for that type of circumstance, but perhaps a global circumstance or unrest or economic instability. As we all know, gold offers a level of insurance for a nation or an individual to buffer them from the impacts of certain economic events. Now, in the case of China, it opens the door for them to ultimately unpeg the yuan from the dollar. This has been discussed. We've seen it in the news in the past. There's been theorizing of it from various outlets. But private investors should take a cue from the actions of these central banks. They're bringing their gold home. Obviously, they see the value in buying gold and holding it within their vaults as a safe haven strategy. Now, onward, World Gold Council wants to create a standard to avoid Islamic finance disputes. What is this about? As you know, the Islamic cultures, based upon their religion, have a different set of financial rules and regulations that they kind of operate under. The World Gold Council wants to come up with centralized rules that have support of banks and investment funds. And scholars are kind of divided on using the metal to back the sukuk. So let's take a look here. It's kind of a complicated article. You have to really understand the Sharia law and the details of that culture. And I got to be honest, I just don't know enough about it to make a whole lot of statements on it other than what I'm reading here. Now, the World Gold Council is seeking to create a global standard to make the metals use in Islamic finance more cost-effective by eliminating disputes among scholars. The 18-member council and Amani advisors issued a consultation draft in November to Sharia professionals and practitioners. The World Gold Council has also held bilateral meetings with banks and investment funds who say that such a template will lead to more gold-backed products. Natalie Dempster, its London-based managing director of central banks and public policy, said in a December 24th email interview. As the $2 trillion Islamic finance industry slows and sukuk sales falter, a new standard could be welcomed as differing perceptions of Sharia compliance in Asia and the Middle East hinder development. Individual scholars currently vet gold products for conformity, and Malaysian law firm Lee Hishamuddin Allen and Glenhill says there's a divided opinion on whether the commodity can be used as an underlying asset for Islamic bonds. The impact of such a standard could add greater diversity and confidence for investment opportunities, said Samina Akram, the managing director of London-based consultancy Samak Ethical Finance Limited. This may even open the doors to issuers and investors that perhaps may not have previously considered Islamic finance as a means to raise capital. Now, pause for just a moment. Yeah, as we all know, there's a very large population spread around the globe in a lot of countries where, because it's based on Islamic law, it might hinder Western investment and capital raising capabilities. So there's a very large part of the world and global economy that might not be incorporated into investment opportunities for the West or whomever, the East as well, and the South and the North. But this might help, kind of bridge some gaps culturally. We'll see. But Sharia ethics here talks about Sharia compliant financing is governed by the Quran and includes sharing risk, prohibits any involvement in businesses deemed as unethical, such as alcohol, endorses socially responsible investing, and forbids interest payments. I kind of like that. To get around the latter, Islamic bonds pay returns based on an underlying asset in the form of a profit rate. There is conflict among scholars as to whether gold is classed as a currency or a commodity, which probably harks back to Islamic finance's early origins using gold coins. The precious metal is considered to be an item that is not to be bought and sold at a profit, at a different price or on a deferred payment basis, said Megat Hazani Hassan, head of the Islamic finance practice at Lee Hishamuddin Allen and Glenhill in Kuala Lumpur. It is classed as one of the 6 ribawi items: silver, dates, wheat, salt, and barley. That's pretty interesting. A little bit of news there. Probably not something you're going to see on the old CNN, but definitely something that we like to bring to you here on the Junius Maltby channel. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit of trivia for gold news anyway. But let's move on again. Now let's look at China. They want the yuan denominated gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. So now you have, so far we've talked about Middle Easterners, we've talked about Europeans, now we're talking about Easterners. China wanting gold. China's the top producer and top buyer of gold. China's working to enhance its position in the gold markets by getting a yuan denominated gold benchmark to be traded on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. The SGE would act as a central counterparty where the banks could settle their trades. This may eventually give more liberty to China as gold can be directly converted to the Chinese currency, which could pose a threat to London and New York gold markets. I don't think it has to pose a threat. I think it would just, why should London and New York have the, all the control over the gold markets? Why not allow the Chinese, one of the largest populations in the world, help dictate what the price of gold is? I think it's the right thing to do. Now, China will most likely float a 1 kilogram contract on the exchange, and its success would be highly dependent on participation by overseas banks that handle foreign transactions for precious metals. China has historically been one of the biggest markets for precious metals, yes. And we talked about this just a few moments ago. Texas wants its gold back. Well, there's a guy running for president from Texas, as you all know, this guy, Ted Cruz. And it's interesting. He actually wants to go back to the gold standard. I haven't looked too much into him. I'm not into the whole political race thing and who's running for president. As an American, I really don't care. You've heard my take on that. I think that if voting changed anything, it would be illegal, and these people are just going to do what they're going to do. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but anyways, Ted Cruz's chances of becoming the next president are rising, apparently, according to the news anyway. And he's not backing away from his plan to return America to the gold standard. I don't know how detailed his plan is. Does he want to go back to the one that we had in the early 1930s and 20s? Does he want to go back to the very beginning of U.S. Coinage Act? I don't know. I just find it interesting that we have a guy who's running for president and wants to return to the gold standard. The only guy that ever ran for president that I really cared for was Ron Paul, and I lost both those races. So here we go. Look at this. What is this? ISIS wants to return to the gold currency. After all that, we have Europe, we have Asia, we have Texas, we have all these countries, the World Gold Council. We got, a guy running for president of the United States. You got Ted Cruz wants a gold standard. He could sit down with ISIS and hash this out. They got something in common. So ISIS wants a return to the gold currency as well. So it looks like the Netherlands and Germany, all these countries, everyone likes gold. Even ISIS likes gold. Everyone likes gold. See, the whole world can unite on gold. We can all sit down and drink tea and talk and toss gold coins around on a table. When ISIS took over Iraq's second largest city in 2014, it stole nearly $450 million from Mosul's central bank. That theft included an unknown amount of gold bullion. According to the International Business Times, the terrorist organization believes paper money is a disaster and is calling for a return to gold currency standard in a video called Dark Rise of Banknotes and the Return of the Gold Dinar. In the video, they condemn the rise of banknotes like the US dollar, which started as a mere claim to gold and are now a worthless piece of paper. Economists say a gold bullion standard would never work these days because people would simply hoard their gold rather than using it as a currency. Not true. In the video, the group points to medieval times when the Islamic Empire stretched across the Middle East and Africa using gold and silver. The rest of Europe lay witness to the dark rise of banknotes born out of the satanic conception of banks, which mutated into a fraudulent financial system of enslavement orchestrated by the Federal Reserve in America. So, isn't that interesting, my friends? You yourselves have something in common with ISIS. I don't promote any of the evil stuff they do. Believe me, they're an evil entity. Even evil entities sometimes might be, correct in one view of something. Just because someone is evil, you can't discount every single thing that they say. Even Time Magazine made Hitler Man of the Year once. Time Magazine, as you all know, is probably a socialist rag. My point here is, even Obama, the President of the United States currently, I don't think all the times is making the wrong. Some of the things he might do are correct. Some of his policies might be correct. Some of his statements. I don't discount everything somebody says and just throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you know what I mean. The whole point of this video was to just kind of point out and show that there are some common grounds that we all have. One of them is obviously gold. And I think people that are against gold I feel bad for them. They're in the minority. Well, there you have it. Gold uniting the world. If everyone could just come to an agreement, we could come up with some form of a trade as we had in the past, more of a free market system, gold-backed currencies, gold exchanges, the World Gold Council, and I'll even meet ISIS halfway and agree with them, and let the whole world agree we'll throw interest right out the window. No more interest. How about that? You just pay a flat fee to borrow money, or there's some kind of however they do it. I'm sure there's some type of an economic system where we can incorporate it without usury, without interest. But thanks for being here today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, England, Scotland, Ireland, Italy, all my European friends, Asian friends, Middle Eastern friends, and African friends, and South American friends, and North American friends. To all the viewers of the Junior Small P channel across all the 7 continents. If there's any of you from Antarctica, please let us know, because that would be nice to know if there was an Antarctica viewer. And don't BS us. Just if you're not from Antarctica, don't be the guy that throws the comment down. Hey, I'm from Antarctica here. Just be nice to know if there was a real one that really was from Antarctica. Maybe you're like a scientific observation station or a whaling village, or I don't know what you guys do down there. Panning for gold at the face of melting glaciers. Thanks for being part of the Junior Small P channel. Have a great day, and hopefully you have some time to ponder what we've just discussed, and spread this link around. Maybe do some independent research on your own. All right, thanks for being here.